So this is problem 5.2.71, and they ask us to factor. They give us this problem right here. And the first thing that you're always doing, and if you haven't watched it yet, you should watch the video on factoring using the factoring flow diagram, which is this flow diagram right here. And the first thing that the flow diagram says is there a greatest common factor? And if it's yes, then you want to factor out the greatest common factor, and then you're going to ask yourself how many terms are there. And I go through all this on the factoring flow diagram. So we're first of all going to ask ourselves, is there a greatest common factor? And yes, there is one. We can see that there's a 6 that's a common factor for all of the numbers, and then there's an m to the 6 that's a common factor for the variables. Excuse me, sneeze. So we're going to factor out 6m to the 6th here, okay? And we're going to be left with m squared to get that term back. We're going to be left with a minus 2m to get that term back. And then, let's see, 1008 divided by 6 is 168. And no m's because we've taken out m to the 6th, okay? All right, now what you'd want to do is check and see if this inside is going to factor any further. It's a trinomial, which means it has 3 terms. So on our flow diagram, we want to either factor by the trial and error method or the AC method. And I'm just going to use trial and error here. So I would bring my 6m to the 6th along. And then I'm going to write down a couple of parentheses here. And I'm going to just try and figure out what is it that I need to, and also there's a factoring trinomials video that you might want to watch that explains this process in more detail. But what I'm trying to do here is put whatever I can here so that when I multiply, I get m squared back. And then I want to take this 168 and split it up into a couple of numbers that would multiply to give me 168 in these locations. Okay, now 168 is actually a pretty big number, so there's a lot of things that, a lot of factors for 168. So if we started to make a list, it'd be like 1 and 168, and you can see 2 and looks like 84, and I mean we could keep going up. Just use your calculator. You can 3 and 56 and 4 and 4 and 42, and you see I'm just continuing to try numbers on my calculator to see what this is divisible by. Let's try 6 and 28, and I want to get some numbers that when I plug in here and I do outside and inside, that I could possibly get a -2 out of them. And all of these so far are kind of too big, so, well, too far away, I should say, from each other. Let's try 8. 8 and 21 is still too far away. Let's try 12. 12 and 14. That's going to be the one that we're probably going to want to use here. Okay, so if I put a 12 here and a 14 there, and it doesn't matter which parenthesis you put them in, if you take a look at the outside portion here, this is 14m, the inside portion is 12m. If I want a -2 out of this, I can get a -2 by making the 14 negative and the 12 positive. And if I try those signs in here, a negative here and a positive there, so I put the negative there because the 14m came from this multiplication. So if I'm going to make that negative, the negative sign has to go with the 14. Same thing with the positive has to go with the 12. That's going to work for the outside and the inside. And then if I check the last here, positive times negative is negative, and I know that 12 and 14 gives me 168. So that will actually work for this factorization. So this is your answer there.